Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the internet. It's another day, so you know what that means. It's time for another video. I like not reading these stories beforehand because it means that I'm about to be surprised just as much as you are. Divorce deposition fulfillment. This happened about 18 months ago. I found the paperwork this morning and thought about it. I was going through a nasty divorce, complete with disappearing prenups, and my ex was making threats against my small business. When the deposition came, it requested tons of information about my business. Bank transactions, tax returns, etc., and all documents regarding asset sales or acquisitions. First I pushed back and said the administrative burden was excessive. They responded with, "Tough luck." Then I resisted with the argument that I refuse to supply information that will harm my business and the other stakeholders. We finally agreed that only the attorneys will have access to the business records. I asked several attorneys what exactly my rules for compliance are. Short version, each numbered request has to be presented separately, so I can just throw all my responses in a box together. Do I have to send a box? No. Any other organization required? No. I responded with zeal they did not expect. I gave them everything that matched their requests. As this was requested from the business, I was justified in using payroll to prepare my responses, so 5 of us went to work. So I printed off bank statements and bank transaction reports for 7 years for 10 accounts, threw them in a pile, shuffled the whole lot. 1 question, 1 response. As an inventory-based business, every sales transaction is a change of asset, so I added all my sales records to that request. I printed full-page bright orange labels clearly identifying the case, the question, and business documents attorney eyes only. Then I banded the stacks very tightly in piles, about a foot tall with 500 pounds packaging of straps. This makes paperwork bombs that explode with about 3,000 sheets of paper when you cut the straps. And there is no boxes to put them in after you open them. So on the last day in the afternoon, I delivered a pickup truckload of paperwork calmly to a group of expensive attorneys who were freaking out at the sight of cart after cart worth of paperwork being stacked up in their conference room. I purposely put all my personal documents and the smaller questions on the bottom. There's not enough money in the city to pay the attorneys to even touch this mess, let alone go through it. We settled soon after, and I sent a few employees to recover my documents, unopened. Edit. Here's a photo of what I still have to keep in retention, in case the feds want to look through them. Oh boy. You know, it is kind of messed up when you're getting screwed over and they expect you to cooperate and help them screw you over. So I'd say, the more you can do to make their job more difficult, the better. Entitled mom tells her friend she owns my house and lets random kids swim in the pool. So for a little backstory, I live in a nice house. It's right on the beach and I take good care of it and my garden, so it's not strange to see people admiring my home. I'm also a teenager and basically live alone. My dad and mom both work in other states and travel a lot, and my sister lives with her fiancé. I can drive, do laundry, and go grocery shopping, so it isn't too weird. I don't like driving, so I usually bike everywhere, and I have a pool in the backyard. On to the story. Okay, so I just had a long day at work and had a few groceries with me on my bike. I just want to take a nice hot shower, and I look like death in my fast food uniform. As I pull onto my street, I see a line of people blocking my driveway. Like full blocking. I pull onto the sidewalk and start walking my bike towards the group, and I overhear this person talking about how happy she is for the entitled mom, and how beautiful her new home is. I'm like, what? No house nearby was sold, or is even on the market. So I try to pass to get to my garage. I say, hey, can I pass please? The entitled mom says, just go around, can't you see we're busy? I say, I just need to drop my bike in the garage and then I'll be out of your way. I'm glad you like the house though, I try to take care of it. The entitled mom's friend says, I think you might be confused. Entitled mom lives here. I say, no, this is my house. I live here. I don't know her. She says, you were obviously trying to break into my house. Get away before I call the police. I say, no, you need to leave. She says, I will not get off my property. At this point, I just push past and head towards the garage. That's when I hear the splashing. No one should be in the pool. I drop my bike and run to the backyard and see 3 kids swimming in my pool. F that, I raise my voice and tell them to get the F out. The kids both get out, but are obviously confused, and the entitled kid stays in. The kid says, my mommy says I can swim. Go away, you beep. I say, no, I am not responsible for you drowning. Get the heck out of my pool and get off my property. The mom says, don't talk to my angel. That way it's his pool. Then her friend says, what's going on and who is this girl? Says, she's trying to rob me. Get the F out, kid. So me, panicking at this point, say, well, prove it. Prove that you live here, huh? Another friend says, entitled mom, why don't we go inside? The kid shouldn't be here for this argument. I say, like heck you're going into my home. He says, yes, we're going inside. Now go away, girl, before I call the police. I say, fine, I dare you to get in. The group climbs the stairs. Obviously, the entitled mom didn't think this through. Only 2 keys to the house exist, my key and my sister's. I lock up my bike, grab my groceries, and push past the entitled mom. She's making excuses to her friends about why the key doesn't work. I say, "Excuse me, if you don't mind, I'm going into my home." They say, "Entitled mom, what's going on?" I close the door and lock it as the entitled mom is banging on my door, screaming about how she is going to call the cops. I called the cops, not her. She ran off as soon as they saw the cop cars, and the friends stayed behind very confused. They explained that entitled mom had told them that this was her house, and they were just going to swim in the pool and then head to the beach, so they would never go in the house. Later on, no charges are pressed on entitled mom. I hope she learned her lesson. I mean, I know we live in a culture that really promotes people being fake to make their life look as perfect as possible, but I feel like going up to some stranger's house and then claiming that it's yours is taking it a little bit too far. Oh well, moving on. Truancy officer thinks I'm a high school student. So just read another story where this happened. It's an I don't go here situation though. So my family moved to the south after I graduated high school. So my brother had 2 years left, and they do block scheduling for classes. All that means is that some days he'd get out of school earlier than what we did at our old high school. I go to pick him up from school. It's a 3-hour bus ride, or a 15 minutes if I pick him up. One day at about 1 p.m., and I'm waiting out in my car in the pickup area, kinda near the doors. And here comes the truancy officer. Says, "Excuse me, miss, but school isn't out yet. You should be in class." I say, "I graduated high school already. I'm here picking up my younger brother. He gets out around 1:15 and 1:30. Says, "I've seen you here before. You need to be in class. What's your name?" I showed him my ID, out of state. "I know that last name. You do go here. Come inside to the office." I say, "Well, obviously my brother and I have the same last name. We're siblings." So I go in because 1, I don't want to keep having issues every time I pick up my brother. And 2, I do need to collect my brother, as we both have to go to work. We make our way to the office, where the officer tells them to look up my name. The office lady says, "We don't have the student by that name. We do have another student with the same last name." Says, "That's her then. She just gave me the wrong name on purpose." I say, "The other student is male, sir. She doesn't go here." I say, "That would be my brother. Could you page him for me?" "No, I've seen her here before. She goes to school here." "Sir, she doesn't go here. We have no record of any student with her name. Leave her be." My brother arrives to the office, looking confused. "Hey sis, you ready to go?" So, "See, she does go here. Why would she know students if she doesn't?" My brother says, "She's here to pick me up from school. She isn't in the system because she is not a student." "But I see her every day outside." My brother turns to the office worker and asks if we are okay to dip out. She says yes, so we skedaddle. As we're leaving, we can hear the office lady trying to explain to the truancy officer that all current students are in the system, and that if he brings in one more random person that he sees outside every day, claiming they're a student, she's gonna file a complaint on him. My brother says, "I've only been here a month and I already know that guy is a moron." Wow, that is some top-tier security work, man. I bet you also call the police when you see kids getting into their parents' cars after school, huh? Alright, now we've got entitled mom can't fathom why a disabled kid gets priority boarding. So another day, another post about people complaining about my disability. I get it, I guess. I'm 16 and look relatively healthy until I pass out and fall down on a flight of stairs, or can't breathe and end up in the ICU. Anyways, I was going back to school yesterday via plane. I was alone for this particular flight. A short summary of me. I'm 16 and have enough health issues that give me the perks of being disabled that entitled people really want. I made it through to the airport so far. Air travel can be a hassle for me, depending on which airport and which TSA agent I have. But it was going relatively smoothly. I have a carry-on bag with my phone and crap, and an entire suitcase that is marked with medical equipment, please handle with care. Inside that, I have dozens of meds, nebulizer, neb vials, oxygen tubing, etc. Usually that suitcase and its little tag keep me from getting crapped on from the general public, but apparently not today. So I'm waiting for my flight, which is scheduled to start boarding in 25 minutes exactly. This is usually when I go up to the counter and state my need for priority boarding. I answer the relevant questions, provide documentation if asked, and voila, I get a new boarding pass that gives me extra time and allows me to sit in the booked seat. I'm talking with the agent, and she's really sweet, so after she wraps everything up for me, we chat for a second, and I talk about how crazy busy it is. So the entitled mom is standing behind me, waiting to talk to the agent. I step aside and go over to wait for my flight. I sit down on the ground and pull out my laptop to work on my personal writing. I'm wearing earbuds, but I can kind of feel the weird sensation where someone is staring at you. So I take them out and look up to see the entitled mom complaining and moaning to the agent at the counter about me getting priority boarding. She's shooting dagger glares at me. I infer that she is mad about priority boarding, and therefore must be angry at how a seemingly healthy kid got to board before her and her little hellspawn. I now start to pay attention to the conversation. Excuse me, but why does this teenager get to board before us? The agent says, I'm sorry, but that information is private. It's not fair. She's just a liar and a freeloader. She doesn't need to board early. This young lady has a very valid reason and is protected by airline policy. What exactly is your reasoning for requesting priority boarding? My son right here is very young and needs help adjusting to the plane. You allow parents and kids extra time to board. Ma'am, your son is 9 years old. That policy does not apply to him anymore. What the F? I want to speak to your manager. So I step in to intervene because I work in customer service and have dealt with many Karens. It's easier to have another person on your side. I say, excuse me ma'am, I'm allowed early boarding due to the federal law and airline policy. Please do not take it out on the agent right here. If you have an issue with my boarding, you can speak to me instead. Says, exactly why the F can you board early? You don't meet any of the policies. Grow up and take some responsibility. I don't know where the heck she got that from. Being I am 16, traveling across the country alone, with a disability, I'm pretty darn responsible. I say, I am disabled. I've gotten plenty more reasons to board early than you and your kid. If you so like, I will board normally and be unable to inform the flight crew of my disability and proper procedure to help me when I am in distress, which means we might have to make an emergency landing. I'm sure you'll like that because it will delay your arrival in state by a day. Would you like me to do so? So I'm standing there, looking like I give no Fs. So the entitled mom looks taken aback and is the epitome of a shocked Pikachu meme. Says, but you aren't old. You can't be disabled if you aren't old. I think I found my title line. I say, well, for your information, I'm going back to school a few days early so that I could spend 3 days in the hospital seeing a variety of specialists, having a battery of tests, and possibly having a feeding tube placed. Disability does not discriminate based on age. Now, if you will excuse me, I'm going to sit back down before I pass out. That shut the entitled mom up, and she slunk back to her row of chairs to sit and wait for her boarding zone to be called. I waited a few minutes and then got up to be at the very front of the priority boarding line. I enjoyed a peaceful flight and enjoyed seeing Karen be stuck in the back of the plane, waiting to deplane while I was the first one off. You hear that, guys? Only old people can be disabled. Man, my back is killing me today. I think I slept on it wrong. I think I must be old now. Alright, well let's finish off the stories with some ProRevenge called Made Sure My Ex Didn't Get His Dream Job. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I was dating this guy. Let's call him Jack. He was this brooding guy in the Spanish class, and I was super into the whole mysterious, not talking to anyone, not caring vibe. Once we started dating, things were pretty cool. He was nice and funny, but he would make little comments all the time that just weren't okay. For example, I didn't like cursing back then, so when he would say F, I would ask him to stop. And he would just say, why the F should I effing stop saying F? Because you're gonna get me demonetized, that's why. Over the next few months, things got worse and worse. He didn't want me talking to boys, which I accepted as him just being a jealous boyfriend. But then, he didn't want me talking to girls either, because he thought I would badmouth him. When I talked to girls in front of him, he accused me of talking code about him, even though I would often say things like, oh, the test in math was hard, right? Then came the emotional manipulation. When we could get into arguments, he would storm out of my house and cause scenes in front of my neighbors, forcing me to just agree to whatever he wanted, so that he would stop making me look bad in front of others. He would say things like, oh, if you loved me, you would do this. One time, I tried to break up with him, and he ran into my house 10 miles away to make sure that I felt guilty enough to stay with him. Not long after all this came the physical stuff. He would throw things, hit me, he even punched a hole in my wall. That was fun, trying to come up with an explanation for my parents. 10 months after we started dating, I finally ended it after he sexually assaulted me. I told my parents, and they made sure that I was able to break up with him without him guilting me into backing out. What I didn't realize was that during the sexual assault, he'd taken pictures. The next day at school, he threatened to show them to everyone. His friends, my parents, teachers, college admissions, everyone. I told one of my rather intimidating friends about it, and she made sure to put a stop to that. She ended up hunting him down, beating the crap out of him, and forcing him to delete the pics. She was the best, and I made sure to buy her a burger for that. He'd also lent me his graphing calculator for algebra. You know, the ones that cost like $200. He told me that he didn't want it back, but that he wanted money to buy a new one. He also wanted $500 for all the pizza, dinners, etc. that he'd bought me over our relationship. I said F that, bagged up all the stuff he'd lent me, and put it in his locker. When I got home that night, the bag was sitting on my front porch. I ended up driving to his house and giving the stuff to his parents, making sure to explain that, while he bought me food, I also bought him food, so I didn't owe him crap. All of that is a long-winded way to say that this guy sucked. Fast forward about a year, I was in therapy, taking medicine, and doing much better after that entire ordeal. I hadn't spoken to him at all, and things were great. Then I get a call from him. Now, Jack's dream was to join the Marines. He'd been training with a Marine recruiter for nearly 2 years, getting in shape, making sure he was up to standard to join. As much as I hated him, I have to admit that he worked his butt off for that. When Jack called me, he asked me to be a character reference for him. Why he asked me, I have no friggin' idea. After all the crap he did, you would think he would have wanted me as far away from the recruiter people as possible. Nonetheless, he asked. So I did what any good friend would do, and I told him, sure, I'd be happy to be your reference. He said great, and told me the stuff to say once the recruiting officer called. Stuff like, Jack's an upstanding person, very loyal, very strong, very hardworking, a great guy to have in the Marines. I said, no problem, and hung up. So 2 weeks later, I get the call. Sergeant whatever asked me a couple of questions, like how did I know Jack, did I think he was a good fit for the Marines, what kind of person he was, etc. You better believe that I told the guy everything. I told him about the emotional manipulation, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, all of it, in painstaking detail. The sergeant was pretty quiet through all of this, just listening, jotting everything down, I imagine. At the end of the call, he said, thank you for telling me all of this. I'll be honest, that's not what I was expecting to hear, but I appreciate your honesty. That's not the kind of person we want in the Marines. I agreed with him on that point, and we hung up. I never talked to Jack again after that. Last I heard, he's working at McDonald's, still in our podunk hometown. I guess my character reference didn't help him get into the Marines. Whoops. Yeah, when you're looking for people as references, you're not supposed to pick people that hate you. But I mean, maybe everybody just hates him, and he's like, well, who are the 2 people in the world that hate me the least? Alright, let's try and get through a question of the day with a cat on my lap. Cops of Reddit, what's the most BS sounding excuse you got that actually turned out to be true? I'm sure a lot of you remember we just had a video very similar to this one not too long ago. Cop here, got a call of a domestic dispute that sounded very heated and a lot of banging was heard. Get to the scene and I can hear someone yelling and swearing and brawling. Doesn't sound good at all. The guy answers the door, shirt off and angry, but seems bewildered as to why police have been called. He told me he was building IKEA furniture. Sounded like the most BS thing. But we enter, see the new IKEA furniture half set up, and no one else is home. Color me surprised. Man, sounds like he was getting really into it. So I got pulled over for driving to school at 10 a.m. The cop wanted to know why I was skipping school. I explained that our little town's girls' basketball team just won state, and since the game was so far away, they let us start the day at 10:30 a.m. He followed me all the way to school so he could ask the principal. I still don't know what was illegal about driving to school at 10 a.m., but he was kind of a douche. Man, what's with all these people getting harassed by police for not being in school? So I was the one with the excuse. I forgot my keys at a friend's place before going out drinking last night. I get home at 2 a.m., no keys. Only one of our windows didn't have ghetto bars, so I took the screen out and started pushing and smacking it up. Blocks were on the side, only providing friction. As I'm halfway in, I just feel whoomp. I got tackled into the house. The officer was still outside, holding onto my ankles. I look up and just said, I'm astonished by your response time. I actually live here. Let me get up, unlock the door, and give you my ID. So I did, and he stares at it for a second, then says sorry, and sprints off to look for the person they were actually in the area looking for. You know, this is something I'm surprised I haven't gotten in trouble for. Especially since I like to go out just for casual walks around midnight or 1 a.m., and I wouldn't be too surprised if somebody thought I looked kinda shady. No cops are posting in here anyway, so I'll throw my hat into the ring as a defense attorney. A guy pulled over for impaired driving and was charged later on with OWI. My boss gets the criminal complaint, and the guy shows up for his initial appearance and tells her that he hadn't been drinking, despite horrifically failing the sobriety test. She's literally sitting next to him and he's obviously waited again. Disappointing, but not uncommon for alcoholics. The deputies arrest him for bail jumping because he drove himself to court that day, and while out on bail, he's not supposed to drink. He adamantly denies drinking. The blood test comes back. He didn't drink. The dude's a diabetic without knowing it and naturally got himself drunk because sometimes when it goes untreated, diabetes can cause symptoms that look just like intoxication. Got him some insulin and the charge is dismissed. Well, that's all the stories. I hope if you guys ever get pulled over, you have a really good excuse for it. So, say hi to the kitty. Hopefully she doesn't keep me up all night again. Man, I feel like I've been really tired lately. I can't tell why. It might just be that Faye wakes me up a lot every morning. Anyways, I'll throw an extra video for those who watch to the end, so thanks for watching.